The resistance to the Trump mandate, of course, is very fierce, but tonight it is clear that that resistance is losing. As the new president floods this machine with a barrage of radical changes to a bloated and very exploited system, in the past 24 hours, we've seen 2 judges ruling that government layoffs can continue, ending desperate lawsuits designed to shield the bureaucratic state from much-needed reform. The lawsuits are all they have to protect the rot of Washington from the Trump mandate, and we're watching this device used to preserve the tyranny of the minority, as they call it. We're watching this device fail. Today, the president met with a bipartisan group of America's governors. And if you didn't watch this live, you missed quite a show. He made it very clear that if you don't follow federal laws, don't expect to get federal money for your states. Once again, using the leverage that he has with the power that he has been assigned. This is what he's doing all over the world. He's now doing it domestically as well. Trump singled out the governor of Maine. You've never heard of this woman unless you live there. 77-year-old Janet Mills. What a picture. A left-wing activist governor, BLM and trans fanatic, presiding over a state that is nowhere near as radical as herself. Take a listen to this.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Janet Mills is going to try and step to Trump in his house. This is not going to go well, Janet. It's not going to go well at all. And in fact, her career is most likely over at this point. Kamala may have won Maine. She eked out that state. She did. But that election, as we all know, was a severe cultural mandate, especially on the issue of trans and women's sports and everything like that. I mean, the Democrat Party bled out on issues like that. Voters do not want men in women's sports. There was a familiar story that came out of her state, out of Maine. A high school pole vaulter just a couple years ago, very mediocre as a boy, flips to being a girl and starts dominating and makes all the little girls at that school not really interested in competing anymore because they have no chance of winning. And how many times have we had to see our little girls disappointed, their hopes shredded, all the fun taken away because some kid had to ruin it. Janet Mills stated today she intends to keep fighting to protect the rights of that young man at the expense of young girls. So she took nothing from the last election. She didn't understand the mandate at all. And she intends to fight this in court. Good luck. It is a perfect example of the Democrat Party's suicidal new brand of politics, ready to die on a hill for an issue that they have about 20% support on. It's the same as their insane reaction to DOGE and cutting government waste. Our big Elon Musk interview from yesterday got a lot of attention over at MSNBC today, where Morning Joe tried to convince Americans that nobody actually wants to see our very bloated government sliced apart. Take a listen.
The word that the constituent said last night, sloppy. That's what you've got here. So this idea that Republicans, all Republicans, want a guy wielding a chainsaw and just slashing NIH budgets, slashing USAID budgets, slashing FAA, slashing TSA. I'm sorry, I'll just say it. That's not what a lot of Republicans voted for Donald Trump for.
He starts off with NIH and USAID. I think most people agree that those two could use some slashings. He didn't have the best examples on the show this morning. And not only do Republicans want this, but polling indicates that Democrats do too. 82%, and I think it's far higher than this, 82% of people in a recent poll think that waste, fraud, and abuse is obviously a problem in this country and in the U.S. government. And in reality, not one person in this country actually believes that the government is anywhere close to efficient and honest with all of that money that we give them. You send anybody $5 trillion, pretend like they're not going to waste it or steal it. Good luck. The president was asked about all of this just a couple hours ago. Take a listen.
Americans voted for you view on the immigration and the economy. But these voters say they're angry and frustrated by these firings. They don't like the work of Elon Musk and these other actions. What do you say to them?
Who do you work for?
I work for ABC News, sir.
Who?
ABC News.
No wonder. Let me just tell you that I have today the highest poll numbers I've ever had. They like the job that we're doing. They like the job that Elon's doing. He's doing something that a lot of people wouldn't have the courage to do. We want to streamline our country. We want to streamline, because you know why? Because we want our country to survive and thrive.
ABC News, no wonder. And George Stephanopoulos is your boss. Yesterday, Stephen Miller lambasted the media for forcibly pushing the state's agenda on this issue, the official government agenda on the issue of whether or not the government should be slashed. Miller continuing to push, and the media, talking about the media, continuing to push the talking point that Elon was not elected and therefore, for some reason, should not be allowed to expose government waste. Take a listen to Stephen Miller.
Many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people.
Always fun to watch him get up at the lectern and just scold the press and teach them a lesson. We are watching right now a complete restructuring of the U.S. government. And it's really, really scary, to be honest, here in Washington, D.C. Going around this town the last couple of days, you talk to people, there's a lot of insecurity here. The most secure jobs in the world. Think about it, U.S. government jobs. Does the U.S. government ever lay off anybody? Ever? Does the U.S. government ever do anything except grow like the cancerous tumor that it is and hire more and more people to do less and less work? You never see government really cut. It's just a very rare thing to see in this country. And it's no longer as secure as it was. You used to get a government job, you knew you were set for life. You didn't have to work that hard either, in most cases. Many, though, people who have never felt the vulnerability of those of us who are in the private sector are really feeling it now. I'm telling you, this is a very nervous city. There's a lot of apprehension here. Over at the CIA, a bloodbath is expected. Largest mass firing in nearly 50 years. This is happening everywhere, and it's happening all at once, and it feels very chaotic in Washington tonight, and that has everybody inside of this little bubble wondering how on earth anybody could want this, because these people here have never had to really connect with the thoughts and the beliefs of everybody that lives outside of this little bubble, where the opinions are much different about what happens inside of this little bubble. You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us, we're different. We report the real news, no spin, just the facts. Turn to us and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt Tonight on Newsmax.